Three countries, Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola, play very vital role to change the poverty statistics in Africa. That's according to the former finance minister of Nigeria, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, on the sidelines of the 2019 Bloomberg New Economy Forum in Beijing, China. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala also believes these countries need to put in more efforts to attract foreign direct investment into the continent.
Recently, I would say about 4 weeks ago, I gave a talk at the Harvard Kennedy School, which talked about the changing face of poverty globally. And I traced the way poverty has been changing. Initially in the 1970s and so on, when Robert McNamara brought this issue of people living in absolute poverty. Poverty, the face of poverty was everywhere. It was Latin America, it was Africa, it was East Asia, it was South Asia. We were all among the absolutely poor. You know, by the 1990s or so, you know, East Asia had moved out. The face was now Africa and South Asia mostly. Now we're in the 2000s, and guess what? The face is mainly that of Africa. But that need not make us despair. Actually, my talk was quite optimistic in saying that I feel that we shouldn't be defined by poverty on the continent, that we have hope, because we're already showing signs of what it takes in order to move us out. We have a very young, vibrant population. You know, 50 to 60% of our young people, our population on the continent in almost every country is below 25. That means that we can really capitalize on this to increase productivity. But what do we have to do? I think 3 countries are very essential to change the statistics on the continent. Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola are 53% or more of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP. If those 3 countries don't perform well, then the numbers for the continent don't move. So they need to really focus on trying to turbocharge their economies. Now, I mean, they need to attract more investment. So that means, you know, going fundamentally to look at where are the economies being held back? You know, slightly different factors in each of these 3 countries. But we need to look at what do we have to do to attract more, first to attract domestic investors, to invest more. What are we doing that is not right? How is our macro stability, our monetary and fiscal policy? How do we attract our own domestic investors to put more money in the economy? Because right now, many of them are moving out. Second, then, how do you then attract more foreign direct investment? This has been falling in all of the countries I mentioned, the 3 countries. So they need to really look at what are the factors, what do they need to do. So fundamentally, those 3 countries. But the bright spot on the continent, there are about 5 or 6 countries that are among the fastest growing in the world. So you've got Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, you've got Senegal, you've got Tanzania, you've got Ethiopia, they're investing heavily in infrastructure, they're attracting foreign direct investment, they're supporting their SMEs, they're creating jobs. So maybe it's good to look next door. Ghana is also among them. What is your neighbor doing that you are not doing? Why are they growing at 6 or 7% and you are not? So we don't have to go too far to look for examples. Well, I've always said with regard to corruption that, look, let's not get or even accept this habit where you mention Africa and the next word is corruption. We're not going to accept that because, you know, corruption is everywhere. You know, it's a worldwide problem. You can mention so many countries where people are battling. In emerging markets, we've heard of in the media problems in Brazil, in Mexico, in Venezuela, in Korea, in Malaysia, I can name, these are all emerging market countries. In the West, we've heard of problems even in the Scandinavian countries where we've just had issues with money laundering in the banking sector in some of these countries. So I don't think we should accept it. That being said, the key issue for African countries, I believe, is we can't afford it. We just don't have the resources to enable us to accept $2, $100 equivalent, whatever it is, disappearing that should be providing services for poor people. So we need to become much more transparent in the way we do business. And we have the tools now. I believe we should really, and young people should latch on to this, rely heavily on technology. For procurement now, we should be looking at things like how do we do contracts with blockchain, which is going to make things more transparent. How do we use, all the technology we have available to make accountability more obvious. We now have young people who are doing amazing things, demanding accountability, loading on the internet, information. Are people at the grassroots getting money that government says should be going to them? Is the education sector getting what it needs? Is health getting? If we can use all the tools to be transparent, then we can hold ourselves and our policymakers accountable. So we as Africans as well, we need to step up. We wouldn't accept this characterization, but we also need to show the world that we are willing to do our business in a very transparent fashion.